Welcome to the first episode of the Sports Hub for the fall semester. I'm Ben Zitouni, and joining me today are Michael Wengrzyn and Jake Sennholz. Guys, how was your summer, and are you ready to talk about some sports today? Jake, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I had a good summer, really busy. I'm excited to finally be back in the studio and get the show going again.
Michael?
I had a pretty good summer, worked as an intern at a radio company myself, so being able to talk about sports now is finally a huge relief.
Yeah, a busy summer for me. It seemed like I worked practically the whole summer, but the summer flew by, and now we're back talking sports, something we all love to do. We'll be talking about pointer sports, college football, and the NFL, the upcoming MLB playoffs, a motorsports update, and the returning segment of buy or sell. Getting things started, the Pointers football team captured their first victory of the season 2 weeks ago in the Spud Bowl with a convincing win over the Dakota State Trojans, 51-28. Quarterback Matt Urmanski completed 15 of 28 passes for 268 yards and 3 touchdowns to lead the Pointers offense. Running back Zach Bosick had 14 carries, racked up 150 yards and 1 touchdown. Tight end Steve Hara had a huge game with 7 receptions, 145 yards and 1 touchdown. The win was secured in the fourth quarter with 2 interceptions by defensive back Omari Johnson, who returned 1 for a touchdown. Guys, what can the team learn from this victory and apply to the rest of the season? Michael, we'll start with you.
Well, you and I called that game a couple weeks ago, Ben, and the biggest thing that we talked about during the entire game and beforehand was about how much that defense really needed to stop the run, and that's exactly what they did. They only allowed up, I believe, a little under 70 yards of rushing total. The passing game overall, or the pass rush was a whole different story as they gave up over 400 yards passing in the air, but at the same time, that Pointers offense looked really good, especially third-year quarterback Matt Urmanski, able to make throw for 3 touchdowns and able to get the win and give Coach Breitbach his first victory ever as Pointers head coach. So I'm really thinking that this team going forward, going out into conference play, has the ability to work harder at every practice and have the chance to maybe have a little bit of a better record than what their conference preview stated for them.
Yeah, I think this game kind of shows, kind of like you said, Michael, they can really play with anybody. Their record should be pretty decent by the end of this year. I think that it showed that they have potential in all facets of the game. They played some great defense, as you said, when it came to the run. Not so much when it came to pass defense, but the Dakota State's quarterback was winging it all around the field. He was making some beautiful throws, so was kind of suspect to pass defense, but I mean it was also good quarterback play. I think that they could learn a lot, like I mentioned, at every different position this year, and really build off that game and hopefully get some more wins.
Yeah, hats off to Matt Urmanski. He had a great game. Like I talked about, Omari Johnson with those 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter. One of them, he jumped the route and he was gone before anybody even realized it.
They were good interceptions.
Yeah, and then
Read the play.
Yeah, one thing that Michael and I were talking about in the broadcast is that Dakota State, a majority of their offensive drives, they would start deep in their own territory and they would get down to the other side of the field with one long pass, and then the Pointers defense would stop them, force a 3-and-out, not allowing Dakota State to get a 4th down conversion or holding them to a field goal. So, yeah, they gave up a lot of passing yards, but I think they played well. The defense played well overall in that game.
Yeah, and as you mentioned too beforehand, the Breitbach is a huge offensive coach. It definitely showed that way a couple of weeks ago, but that defense also had a really big game, and I'm hoping that he has the same expectations for that defense against Platteville this Saturday.
Yeah. So, guys, what are your expectations for this year's team?
I don't know about you guys, but I think that I don't necessarily think they're going to win the WIAC, but I think we're going to be competitive. I think we should be able to play with anybody this year, and I think maybe we're going to get a few surprise wins and beat teams like Eau Claire and other teams like that. So,
yeah,
Michael,
the Pointers have a few games that they're hosting that look to be really competitive. Obviously, they got Oshkosh, they have Platteville this weekend as well, and I also believe that they're hosting River Falls, who have also been pretty tough in years past. So if they can have the advantage at home against those teams, I think that there's a good chance they might be able to beat one of those teams and pull off an upset.
Yeah, I think sky's the limit with this team. They're coming into this Saturday's game 1-2 overall. They're playing Platteville this weekend, so it's going to be a tough a tough contest for their first conference game of the season, but I think finishing 500 would definitely be a huge improvement over the disappointment that last year's season was, and I think they could surprise some people and maybe sneak into the playoffs, but I think they're going to finish over 500, that's for sure.
I think that's a fair point.
And that's a great goal too, especially for this team and this first year's coaching staff and everything. Again, I said I don't expect them to win the WIAC or anything, but I think 500 is a great thing to shoot for.
The Pointers' next game is this Saturday at home against UW Platteville in the annual Pink Game, and SBTV will be broadcasting the game live at 2 p.m. from Gerke Park on the UWSP Athletics YouTube page. The Pointers women's volleyball team, when it went 2-1 this past weekend in the second Pointers Invitational, they dropped their Friday night game to Elmhurst College in a straight set sweep. They then bounced back, winning both of their games on Saturday, first beating Coe College in a straight set sweep, and then winning 3-1 in the second game against Wheaton College. The team played on the road last night against UW Stout. They split the first 2 sets of the match, but then took the next 2 to seal the 3-1 victory. The record now stands at 13-7 overall, 1-1 in conference play. Guys, what's impressed you the most about how well they've played so far this season? Jake?
Yeah, they've just been playing really well as a unit. I forget the exact terminology. It's not an assist in volleyball, but when you set each other up and stuff, they have a bunch of those. There's a bunch of teamwork. They're moving the ball around before that third set. They're really setting each other up quite nicely. And they've been battling back, too. I know they've been getting down in the first set or two a few different times throughout the season, but then they've come back and ended up winning the whole match. And that's what you got to do in volleyball. There's a reason you play five games during a match and during a set, and they've been victorious for the most part. It's been a good season so far.
Yeah, a great looking volleyball program that the Pointers have had the past couple of years. I think also a big part of the credit has to go to April Gale, the junior who made WIAC all-conference first team last year and continues to go out every night and lead the team in digs and assists and such, and all the other volleyball statistics. She's definitely been like the charge of this Pointers volleyball program, and I think that they follow their lead, and even though that the Pointers this year have a new head coach, that they've continued to work off of what their program has been built off of their previous head coach, and hopefully maybe down later on that they can compete for a chance to win later in the NCAA playoffs as well.
Yeah, one thing that's really impressed me, I was at that game on Friday, and obviously, like we said, they lost in a straight set sweep, but I think really, I guess you could say the mantra of their season so far is that every time they've had a loss, they've bounced back and won 2 to 3 matches in a row, and that's kind of given them their confidence back if they lost any after their losses. But I think going off what I said, they haven't been too high with their victories and they haven't gotten too low with their losses, which is something you always want any sports team to do. Because as we know, it's a long season, and there's definitely going to be highs and lows, and you can't really gauge the season off of 1 week or a stretch of games, and things can always change. Guys, does this team get at least 25 wins this season? Michael?
I think so. They look like they can bounce back, as you mentioned, from tough losses, but I think they have the ability to get to 25 wins.
Yeah, I agree. This isn't a team that loses a bunch of games, a bunch of sets in a row. As we both mentioned, even if they start a little rough, they usually bounce back and end up winning the majority of their sets. So I think 25 wins is definitely doable.
All right, do you guys think that they can make a run for the WIAC championship? Jake?
Yeah, I think that this program has seen a lot of success in the past, and that it's got a couple older leaders on this team that have tasted success before, and that definitely are capable of leading this team to a WIAC championship. As I mentioned just a minute ago, they've been playing great as a unit, and when all things are clicking, I don't see why they wouldn't be able to win.
Whitewater is considered the favorite to win the WIAC for volleyball, but the Pointers have shown that they could play against them, even though they haven't been able to beat them quite yet. I think later down the season they have a chance to compete for the WIAC championship.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of seniors on their team, but the juniors are, so everybody has been asked to play above their year. The juniors have been asked to step it up a little bit, and the sophomores and so on and so forth, and I think they can definitely win the regular season conference title and definitely the conference tournament championship as well. And it's going to be fun to see how the rest of the season plays out. The Pointers look to continue their winning ways Saturday night at home against UW-Platteville. Now on to women's soccer. The Pointers women's soccer team looked for their second consecutive win last night, hosting Carroll College. Sophomore Caitlin Hess got the Pointers on the scoreboard first by scoring her first goal of the match in the 15th minute. She then made it 2-0 Pointers when she put in a close-range shot in the 64th minute. The Pointers then held that lead till the 81st minute when the Pioneers got one back, making it 2-1. The Pointers held on for the 2-1 victory behind a 4-save game by sophomore goalkeeper Lexi Pawlowski. The Pointers are now 7-1-1 on the season. So guys, what do you make of this team's success so far this season? Michael?
Well, to make it real quick, they have been able to go out there and compete against these tough WIAC opponents, and every night it seems like they have a chance where they're always in the game to win, and so far it's shown that way this season. Hopefully they can continue it down the road.
Jake?
Yeah, 7-1-1 is a great record, and I think they've been doing it through a couple different things. One, playing solid defense when your goaltender only has to have 4 saves in a game. Even in soccer, that's a pretty good game defensively. And then scoring that first goal. They seem to go out and get the first goal a lot of times, which is very important when it comes to soccer, especially when you're playing 2-1 games and stuff like that. But when you score that first goal, you can just play the rest of the game so much differently.
Yeah, going off what you said, Jake, a majority of their games, they seem to jump out to that early lead, which definitely helps. And another thing is that the seniors on this year's roster are head coaches Don Crow's first recruiting class. So 4 years ago, they were freshmen, and they were able to be entrenched into her system early on. They've been able to get more familiar with it as they've progressed through school, and so now they can teach the underclassmen how the system works, what the expectations are of Pointer soccer, and I think sky's the limit for this team. And this is definitely their best record, their best start to the season in a long time. How do they continue their winning ways for the rest of the season?
I think they do exactly what we were just talking about. Again, play solid defense, score that first goal. Just keep doing what you're doing. Buy into what your coach is saying, what your senior leaders are saying. 7-1-1 is a great start, so there's really not much that you want to change. You just keep that going.
Yeah, definitely jumping out to an early lead is pretty much the standard of being able to win these games and staying competitive. And as you mentioned too, Jake, having that great defense in the back and a good goaltender as well really helps you have a chance to win the game.
Any predictions for the rest of the Pointer season?
I think they have a chance to win the conference title.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that as well. I don't see any reason that they shouldn't go on and have great success this year.
Yeah, it's going to be another enjoyment watching another Pointers athletic team playing well. The Pointers open conference play this Saturday at home when they play host the UW Stout. After a quick commercial break, we'll be back with your Motorsports update and all things college and NFL football.
UW Stevens Point is home.
It's a university where professors know your name and get you involved in research.
They inspire us to realize big dreams.
At UW Stevens Point, sustainability is what we stand for.
Our beautiful campus encourages exploration, developing new fields, and problem solving for the real world.
It's a great place to launch your career.
UW Stevens Point is home.
Apply today at uwsp.edu.
Welcome back, folks. After a heartbreaking loss against the BYU Cougars, the now 15th ranked Wisconsin Badgers look to rebound against the Iowa Hawkeyes. Last Saturday night in the Big Ten Conference opener, the game was tight late in the fourth quarter, but then Alex Honeybrook threw the game-winning 17-yard touchdown pass to A.J. Taylor with 57 seconds left to put the Badgers up by 4. The defense then held on against Iowa's offense, and the Badgers got another touchdown late in the game for good measure. They went on to win the battle for the Heartland Trophy, winning 28-17. Alex Honeybrook was 17 for 22 for 205 yards and 3 touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor had another great game, rushing for 113 yards and 25 carries. Tight end Jake Ferguson led the Badgers in receiving with 58 yards and 1 touchdown on 4 receptions. The Badgers are now 3-1 on the season. So guys, what can the Badgers learn from this hard-fought win against Iowa?
Well, looking at their season so far, the loss against BYU was absolutely heartbreaking. It took this team right out of contention for the college football playoff. But Iowa is not an easy place to go play, especially for any team in the Big Ten. But to be able to go there and hold on late for victory and get that touchdown for late measure to win by over 10 points, that says something about this Badgers team, that even though that they're going to go through ups and downs throughout the season, they're not going to give up, and they still got something to play for this season, especially if you want to have a nice bowl game there at the end of the year. So
They are playing for a nice bowl game. The Rose Bowl is not part of the college football playoffs this year, so that's in contention yet. But I guess for me, what you learned about yourself is that you're still capable of beating the teams that you're supposed to beat. Like, you're supposed to go beat an Iowa. It's not going to be an easy task. You're not going to rout them by 50, but you should beat them, as you're supposed to be the better team. I think the other thing that we might be learning is that this Badger team isn't quite the offensive juggernaut that everybody thought that it would be. Jonathan Taylor is great. Alex Hornibrook is okay, but they're not blowing anybody out of the water like they were supposed to be all season. So you can learn a few things from this game, but I think the Badgers have a long season yet, and they're going to have to play their best every week, or otherwise they could drop another random game, and then all of a sudden you can say bye to the Rose Bowl too.
Yeah, real quick, I think they can still make the college football playoff. They're just going to have to win out the rest of the season and have some pretty convincing victories in conference play against some teams like Michigan and if they make it that far, whoever they play in the conference championship game. But back to the Iowa game, it was one side of the team picked up the other side. If the offense was struggling on a drive, they had a 3-and-out, the defense would pick them up with interception by, I believe that was T.J. Edwards late in the game. If the defense struggled and gave up points to Iowa, then the offense would come back. Alex Hornibrook had a pretty good game. I'd say this is probably one of his best of the season so far, and I think that based on what the Badger players were saying in the locker room after that BYU loss, I think they're going to remember that loss. Obviously, all of them hate losing. They all know that they were national championship contenders going into the season, and I think that they're going to still believe in that. And who knows? Sky's the limit for this team. They're ranked 15th now. They can still bounce back into the top 10, bounce back into the top 4 later in the season when the first playoff bowl comes out. So it's going to be fun to watch this Badgers team this year.
The committee does sometimes seem to forgive early season losses. Unfortunately, it's not usually for Wisconsin. It's more usually for programs, I guess SEC programs, if you just want to make a general statement. But it's possible, definitely, especially since it was a Week 3 loss against a now-ranked BYU team. So hopefully the committee takes favor on us.
yeah, hopefully so.
What are you guys' thoughts on the Badgers 3-1 through the first 4 games? We just kind of talked about it a little bit, but
Again, I think 3-1 is where you should be. If not 4-0, I think you should be 4-0. But 3-1, I guess you can deal with that. But again, from what I'm seeing, you're just not the offensive juggernaut. Even in the first 2 weeks when you're playing the much smaller schools who you're supposed to dominate, we didn't really do that.
Some slow starts in those first.
Very slow starts. Again, for me, it's very telling so far about the offense these first 4 games.
Yeah, the Badgers' defenses look slow, but they're picking it up.
The Badgers are off this weekend before they played Nebraska on October 6th. So far this season, the top 3 in the AP college football rankings have stayed the same, with Alabama, Georgia, and Clemson leading the pack. So guys, real quick, what teams have surprised you so far this season, and what teams have been disappointments? Michael?
I don't think any of these teams have really surprised me so far. I think the rankings are what they say, and for the most part, those teams should be in contention by the end of the year for the playoff.
Any teams that have disappointed you?
Well, the Badgers a little bit, but that's a different story, though, outside the top 10 and the top 4.
Jake?
Yeah, I kind of have the same exact answer. It's kind of boring, but so far this year has been what you expected it to be, what everybody kind of predicted it was going to be. I guess if I'm reaching for one team that has kind of impressed me a little bit, I guess I could say Notre Dame. They had a decent win against Michigan, just looking pretty good. So far, as far as anybody that's disappointed me, again, probably the Badgers. Really, so far, nobody else. I don't think it's far enough into the season, and nobody has played anybody else quite significantly yet. There have been some good games already this year, though.
For a team that surprised me, I'm gonna go with Stanford. Everybody knows how good Bryce Love is as a running back and how he was a preseason Heisman favorite. He's gotten off to a slow start at the beginning of the season, like Jonathan Taylor has, but their quarterback KJ Costello has been great these first couple of games. He led a great comeback against Oregon on Saturday, so he's pushed himself now into the Heisman Trophy conversation. And disappointment so far, UCLA. Winless so far this season. Chip Kelly came in as the new head coach, big expectations, and they haven't really performed lately. And you guys have any pick as, do you guys have some college football picks for this season and your national championship pick?
Yeah, for me, I think it's every year, but I think it's Alabama. Just the way that they've been playing lately, and just, I mean, everybody here knows the legend and the history of Coach Nick Saban, but with Tua Tagovailoa behind center for them, and the fact that their offense is clicking, playing better than they ever have before, and their defense is just as good as it is every year, I really have a hard time seeing Alabama losing.
Yeah, I could see the national championship between two teams I really do not like, and that's Alabama and Ohio State, because both of those programs have been really good. Obviously, the issues that Ohio State has had, but
it hasn't seemed to matter.
It hasn't seemed to matter so much these first 4 weeks.
Real quick, my college football playoff, I'm going to go with Georgia, Alabama, Stanford, and Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin's going to bounce back the second half of the season. And you know what? I'm going with Wisconsin as the national championship. All it takes is one game, and if you're on it for that one game and the other team isn't, that's all it takes. So it's going to be fun this continuing this college football season.
It's interesting you don't have Clemson in there, especially after the whole quarterback change and stuff that they just made.
We taped this show, Kelly Bryant's transferring, so we'll
Yep.
see how Clemson does the rest of the season.
Possibly out to UCLA to join up with the winless Chip Kelly.
We now throw it over to sports producer Joey Huebsch for our Motorsports update.
Thanks, Ben. The second race of the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series playoffs took place Saturday night at Richmond Raceway. Coming into the playoffs, the big three of Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, and Martin Truex Jr. are heavily favored to make the championship four at Homestead, since they won 17 of the 26 regular season races. The big three showed their muscle on Saturday night by finishing 1, 2, 3 for the first time this year. Joe Gibbs Racing's Kyle Busch held off Stuart Haas Racing's Kevin Harvick for his 7th win of the season. The win automatically advanced him into the next round of the playoffs, and it was his 50th career Cup Series win, his 6th at Richmond. The win moved him within 7 wins of 200 career NASCAR National Series wins. The top 12 finishers were all playoff drivers. The Cup Series now heads to Charlotte Motor Speedway's Roval this Sunday for the round of 16 elimination race. Every playoff driver not locked into the next round is worried about the unknown for the Roval because it will be the first Cup race on the course. There is also rain in the forecast, which will be another element that the drivers will have to adapt to along with the course itself. The first race of the round of 12 in the Xfinity Series playoffs took place Friday night. Joe Gibbs Racing's Christopher Bell held off Chip Ganassi Racing's Ross Chastain to capture his 5th victory of the season and a spot in the next round of the playoffs. Dale Earnhardt Jr. came out of retirement and had a shot at the win. He started second and finished 4th and led a race-high 96 laps. Justin Allgaier, the points leader heading into the race, got into a wreck late and finished a disappointing 32nd. He was the only playoff driver to have trouble. They now head to Charlotte Motor Speedway's Roval this Saturday for the second race of the round of 12. That is all I have for this week's Motorsports Update. I'll now send it back to our host, Ben.
Thanks, Joey. The Green Bay Packers followed up their strange tie with the Minnesota Vikings at home with a disappointing 31-17 road loss to the Washington Redskins. Aaron Rodgers had a solid game despite the wet field conditions. He completed 27 of 44 passes for 265 yards and 2 touchdowns. And his first came back from his suspension. Aaron Jones led the Packers' rushing attack, rushing for 42 yards on 7 carries. Geronimo Allison led the Packers in receiving with 2 receptions for 76 yards and 1 touchdown. The Packers' defense once again struggled in the first half, giving up 28 points. They rebounded in the second half, only giving up a field goal. The Packers' record now stands at 1-1-1 through the first 3 games. So guys, what went wrong for the Packers in this game? A lot did, but what are some thoughts, Jake?
Well, to start, our defensive backs are not playing phenomenally. The cornerback position is full of young talent, but they're still getting kind of torn apart in these first few weeks. I think Mike Pettin has a lot of work to do. We did just sign a new player, bring somebody in, so that should help. We're also kind of learning that Aaron Rodgers is, I mean, we already knew this, but he is hands down the most valuable player in the entire NFL, because when you don't have a full Aaron Rodgers, a fully healthy, fully capable Aaron Rodgers, your team just is not clicking and functioning the exact way that it should. I think Aaron Jones came back and established himself as a number one guy, as their number one guy, but again, when you only touch the ball 7 times, you can only have a certain amount of impact on the game. So Aaron Rodgers being limpy is not a great sign for the Packers, but I think the offense can do it. I think the offense is there. I think the defense needs a little bit more work.
Yeah, that offense, especially with how bad Randall Cobb played, is probably his worst day as a professional player on Sunday last week. And Lance Kendricks had that huge drop there that could have changed the game.
So
Finally
many
gets
drops.
put onto the field and he can't come up in crunch time.
Yeah, it was such a huge disappointment on both sides of the ball. But, the only shining moment was obviously Aaron Rodgers' performance on that bad knee.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers on one leg is a lot better than most QBs in the league on 2 legs. The offensive line's been really bad these first couple games. Obviously, we know Rodgers got hurt game 1. Past 2 weeks against the Vikings and the Redskins, Aaron Rodgers has been sacked 4 times in each game. The offensive line has got to play better. Now Brian Balaga and Justin McCray might be out for this Sunday's game, so we'll see if Rodgers even decides to play. Well, we can't talk about the game without talking about the controversial roughing the passer penalty that Clay Matthews got in the third quarter. Third game in a row that he didn't deserve it. What are your thoughts, Michael?
Yeah, it looked like a clean hit, like just a routine sack for any kind of linebacker that's coming up, rushing to quarterback. But he didn't really do all that much to drive him down into the turf. Like the rule states that you can't put all your body weight on the quarterback, but I didn't really see anything out of that from Matthews. And it's not only Matthews that has had that problem. Other teams around the league have been experiencing the same challenges with this rule as well. So Matthews has just been the headline victim of this whole controversial rule.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because this whole rule is in place because we as Packer fans lost our quarterback last year because of something like this. So then they implement this rule, and now we're the team being most affected by it every week. So it's kind of just been a lose-lose for us all around. This issue has obviously been hashed and rehashed many times throughout the past couple weeks. I think that they're bad calls. You think that they're bad calls. Everybody thinks that they're bad calls. I don't know what to do about it. I don't know what Clay Matthews should do about it. The thing that irks me the most is especially this last week, when he hit Alex Smith. He wasn't coming from the side, from the back, from nothing. Like, he hit him directly straight on. Alex Smith saw him coming. The way that he went down, again, like you said, it did not look like he put any body weight or anything on that. I don't know what the reason is that they're calling him, but he can't avoid it. So it'll be interesting to see if Josh Allen, gets the flag this week when Clay Matthews inevitably gets to him.
Yeah, for some reason, I think Clay Matthews has a target on his back. From 2009 to 2017, he had 4 roughing the passer penalties. Through 3 games this season, he has 3, so who knows what's going on. That hit last year, Anthony Barr and Aaron Rodgers, that was a late hit. Very few of these penalties so far this season have been late hits. That's the difference. It's a bad penalty. Obviously, the NFL's not going to do anything about it because they think they're always right and they're stubborn. Back to the Packers, guys. What changes need to be made to this team for them to play better?
Well, I think it's about just staying healthy. You need guys can step up and take on the role of playing out there every Sunday when it comes to the time of guys going down. So they just got to stay healthy, especially this upcoming Sunday.
Jake?
Yeah, you mentioned it briefly earlier. I think the offensive line has really got to take a step, whether that is bringing somebody else in or the guys within just stepping it up. And I also think it was a great move. I can't remember his name right now, but he's
Rashad Breeland?
Yes, Breeland, thank you. He's a 4-year vet. He's been there. He's done it before. He's won games around the league. So you bring him in, and to maybe mentor and school these younger guys a little bit. And it is still early in the season, and like I mentioned, all these guys in the defensive backfield are just so young. So you keep coaching them, you keep giving them time, and I think that they are going to make a big difference on this team as well.
Anything that stood out to you guys so far this season, your likes or dislikes of how the Packers have played so far? Anything really that's standing out to you?
I know it's only one game, but again, I think Aaron Jones, he came back, he looked great.
Really confusing as to why they went away from him when he had that hot hand.
Yeah.
He got some garbage time in the fourth quarter when the game was already decided.
Yes, and again, only 7 carries for 42 yards. I mean, after not playing for your first few weeks, that's a heck of a comeback. So, really encouraged by Aaron Jones.
I'll give a quick credit to Josh Jackson on that blocked punt against Minnesota in week 2. Definitely showed that he can be a young player both on special teams and in the secondary.
The Packers play at home this Sunday against the Buffalo Bills. Kickoff is set for noon. The NFL season has been wild through the first 3 weeks. The Oakland Raiders traded Khalil Mack to the Bears prior to Week 1. Le'Veon Bell continues his holdout with the Steelers. Last week, the Browns traded Josh Gordon to the Patriots. Surprisingly, the Chiefs are the hottest team in the NFL right now, led by their second-year quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. Through the first 3 games, 34 roughing the passer penalties have been called. Guys, what's been, in your opinion, the biggest headline of the NFL season so far?
I think, unfortunately, it is the penalties. With everything else great that's been going on, you have, like you mentioned, Patrick Mahomes setting records all over the place. You got surprise teams you didn't think were going to be good that ended up being great. You've got John Gruden's comeback, who's 0-3 so far. You've got a lot of interesting storylines going on throughout the league, but yet we're talking about penalties. We're talking about the fact that there's too many of them being called, and that the refs are being inconsistent. Yeah, and they're not good calls. So it's unfortunate when something fun and something good is happening and all you can focus on is the negative. That seems to be the reality quite often when it comes to the NFL. What do you think, Michael?
I fully agree with you, Jake, on everything you said. We went from discussing what is a catch to now what is a clean tackle. And it's just only been 34 calls so far this season, and so far it's looking like it's not going to end anytime soon. And these officials really need to take a look at what exactly is the clean hit.
34 calls in 3 weeks, really, that is a mind-blowing, that's an astronomical number.
So, what are your guys' playoff and Super Bowl predictions? We'll start real quick. Are the Packers going to make the playoffs?
I think they can make the playoffs. It just depends on how far they can go down in the playoffs, the Super Bowl.
Yeah, right now it's a little early for me, I think, to make a Super Bowl prediction. I, hands down, had the Packers in before the start of the season. I'm kind of starting to question it and starting to wonder. The NFC is looking good. You had teams now like the 49ers who are a potential playoff team, and they're for sure out of the race because of Jimmy G going down and things like that. So I'll know better within a week or two here who I think is going to come out of each division.
The Packers have Aaron Rodgers. They have a chance. I don't care if it's going to be week 4 of the NFL season. My Super Bowl prediction, Packers-Chiefs. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be fun to watch Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes duel it out and hopefully a high-scoring affair. After our final commercial break, we'll be back with the MLB and our buy or sell segment.
Wengrzyn, the 7th largest book printer in North America, is hiring students for the semester. We are 100% employee-owned and located right here in Stevens Point, Wisconsin. All shifts currently hiring, with jobs starting at $10.80 an hour. Hours are flexible. For more information, contact the Wengrzyn HR department.
Regular season is rapidly coming to a close, and there are 2 pennant races that will come down to the wire. The Rockies lead the LA Dodgers by half a game in the NL West, and the Cubs lead the Brewers by a half game in the NL Central. The second National League wildcard spot is still up for grabs between the Dodgers and the Cardinals, who are separated by a game as we tape this show. So guys, now that the Brewers clinched their first playoff berth since 2011, what can the Brewers do in the postseason? Michael?
Well, obviously you got to just keep your winning streak going. It's just the way how this team has been playing. You got to give credit to Christian Yelich. Obviously, I think is going to be the NL MVP at the end of the year. and it seems like the rest of the Brewers lineup is following what he's doing. It's just that their pitching is just something I'm a little concerned about, how far it's going to be able to get them down the road. But it looks like it should be able to be fine if you got your relief guys coming in there and being able to keep the team in the game. So it's just going to come down to how well this team continues to success from the regular season.
Jake?
Yeah, if they can continue just playing like they have, especially in these last few weeks, they've been minus that one series against the the back-to-back series against the Pirates and the Reds. They've been playing phenomenally through this last month, and I think the pitching staff is really coming around. I think, like I believe yesterday when we clinched, I think we used 9 different pitchers in that game, and I think Craig Counsell is really starting to come around and realize who's great for what spots and really how to manage that rotation. I also think that it's a really positive thing that anybody we'd be facing, especially in the first couple rounds, in the divisional round, we have a positive record. We have an over 500 record this year, so we know the teams that we'd be playing in the postseason very well. We know that we're capable of beating them. We've been beating them all season. So I think it's really exciting, obviously, and I just can't wait to watch postseason baseball. I think we're locked into that home wild card. I don't think, sadly, that we're going to clinch the division. The Pirates really tried to help us last night, making a 4-run comeback and taking it to the 10th inning, but Cubs were able to sneak out that win. So I think the Cubs end up taking the division, but I don't see why the Brewers can't beat them in the playoffs.
For me, what's impressed the Brewers is that they've ridden the ups and downs of a long season. They struggled right before the All-Star game with that 5-game series against the Pirates. Everybody knows what happened with Josh Hader during the All-Star game. That really could have destroyed the team this season, but instead of letting it destroy them, they all came together. Everybody saw how practically the whole team was in that media auditorium for Josh Hader's press conference. And like Craig Counsell said last night after the game, a year ago they were in the Cardinals visitors clubhouse, bad feeling in their mouth, missed the playoffs by a game. This year they worked together. They brought into the family philosophy that Counsell wanted them to buy into, and now they're going to the playoffs. And the biggest difference is 2011, they kind of sputtered into the playoffs, and right now they're on a hot streak and firing on all cylinders.
I've said it before, I think this team is better than the 2011 team. I think they have more talent, and exactly what you just said. They didn't just sputter to get there. They dominated on their way there.
Real quick, do the Brewers steal the NL Central Division title away from the Cubs? Okay, no from Jake. Michael?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, the Cubs had the struggle last night against the Pirates and come back with the victory. So if the Brewers can win out, I'm pretty sure they can clinch division if the Cardinals beat the Cubs 2 out of 3 games.
Yeah, I just have a hard time. Like the Cardinals, we just swept them, and the Cubs also are coming off a bunch of losses, and I think they know what also is at stake. I just have a hard time seeing the Cubs lose 2 out of 3 this coming weekend. I think it was there for the Brewers taking. There was a few games that slipped through their hands, especially against Chicago earlier this year, or teams like the Pirates and the Reds, who we just wasted games against all season.
For the first time in my life this weekend, I'm a St. Louis Cardinals fan. They're going to get it done against the Cubs. They're going to win at least 2 out of 3, and the Brewers are going to be NL Central champs. World Series predictions. Mine real quick, Brewers A's. Michael?
I think I'm going to go with Rockies Red Sox.
Ooh, rematch of 2007. Jake?
I'll say the Brewers, just because I legitimately think that we have the potential to get there. And then I think the Red Sox. I think they're the best team in the entire MLB, hands down. They've won almost 110 games this season. I think they're going to get there without struggle, and then it should be a good series.
Rematch of the Brewers' old AL East days. Now to wrap up the show, guys, let's do some buy or sell. First one, Le'Veon Bell will not play this season.
That's an easy buy for me. No way I can see him back in Pittsburgh after the season either.
Oh, I gotta sell that, because if he doesn't come back before week 11, I believe, then this year doesn't actually count. Yeah, so then he would have to again go through this whole process next year. So in order for this year to actually count, he's got to play. Therefore, I think he sits as long as he possibly can, comes back week 10, week 11, whenever.
I'm selling that for the same reason Jake just said. Next one, Jonathan Taylor wins the Heisman Trophy this season. Buy or sell?
I can buy that. Definitely needs to have a little bit more of support from his offensive line, but he has the talent to put himself in the Heisman race.
Jake?
Yeah, I'll probably sell it. I think he's there. I think he's in the Heisman race. I think that they depend on him enough that he's going to be in the conversation, but I don't see him winning.
He's going to have to turn it up. He can't have slow starts like he has these past few games. I'm going to sell it. Christian Yelich will win NL MVP. Michael?
Oh, that's an easy buy. I think, depending on what you guys think, it's pretty easy to buy that one.
It should be easy to buy. It should be not even a discussion, but for some reason it is a discussion. He's still, according to Las Vegas odds, he's still only like the third or fourth most likely to win the NL MVP, which I don't understand, but that's what Vegas says. So
I'm buying it. He's going to win. Last one. Tiger Woods will win a major next year. Jake, you're the golf man.
I think he will win a major. He made 3 out of 4 cuts this year. He had 8 top 10 finishes. His game got better and better and better and better and better all season long. I think he's back. I think he's going to win. I think he's going to win one next year. I doubt it will be the U.S. Open. My guess would be either the Masters or the British Open.
I'm going to sell that. While he does have that game back finally that he's been looking for all these years, there's just so many young talent that he's playing against that grew up watching him, and they know his play. So he'll be up there in a few tournaments, but I don't think he's going to win a major tournament next year.
At this point, though, I think it's more of Tiger. It's not Tiger versus everybody. It's Tiger versus himself. I think he knows what he's capable of doing and how close that he's come. And I think he does have the ability to beat everybody else. He's just got to be able to do it for 4 days in a row, like we saw this last weekend.
I'm going to sell it like Jake just said. His biggest battle is going to be against himself. He's been able to play good in spurts. He'll play good Thursday and Friday. He'll play good Saturday and Sunday. But can he put together 4 straight days of good Tiger golf? I don't know if he can. I'm going to sell it. Well, that's all we have for you today. I'd like to thank Michael and Jake for joining me on the show, and a big thank you to our technical staff and all their hard work to make this possible. Be sure to check us out on Facebook at SBTV UWSP Television, or follow us on Twitter at SBTV_UWSP. Also visit the UWSP homepage to locate all your pointer athletic information. We'll see you next week on the Sports Hub.